Hey, what's going on everybody? This is Ambro with AMBG, and today we're going over the gaming news roundup for the last 30 days or so. Sorry I haven't been too active in the last week or so, I was busy doing some adult stuff. But it's actually been a really busy few weeks for gaming and for gaming news. We have lots of upcoming games that I want to talk about, and we have lots of news that are going around within the big three that I think need to be brought up. Remember, if you liked the video, to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to support the channel further, consider subscribing. Anyway, let's get right to it. Starting off with some big news is that Epic reportedly offered Sony $200 million for PlayStation exclusive. Now, this actually came out of the Epic Games versus Apple trial that continues to be a goldmine in revealing how these corporations work. Now, apparently, Epic had offered this substantial amount of money to get 4 to 6 PlayStation exclusives on the Epic's game store on PC. Now, it's unclear whether or not Epic knew that Sony was going to bring their exclusives to PC prior to the offer, but you would think that they did. It's also unclear whether or not these titles would be exclusive permanently or just as a timed exclusive. Now, Sony has since shot this down, but this is a very interesting thing to bring up because this kind of deal could shake the gaming industry. There's already so much flack that goes around for the Epic Game Store and its woeful lack of features. And if their exclusives had come only to the Epic Game Store, there would be a lot of people that would have been upset with that. Staying on PlayStation news, Sony is working on Discord integration for PlayStation. And to be very clear, this would be a partnership. This is not Sony buying up Discord and owning them as a company. I know that there are previous news articles that had come out recently about Xbox trying to buy Discord for $10 billion. This is not that. This is Sony being a partner with Discord and simply integrating it into PlayStation. Now, I actually think that this is a fantastic bit of news. Discord is simply the go-to platform for many gamers around the world to connect, to voice chat, and be a part of an overall community. So I think that this is really awesome. The more ways that gamers can connect, the better. Continuing on with a little bit of PlayStation news is that the Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is exclusive to the PlayStation 5 for 6 months. Now, this is also piggybacking off a little bit of news that sometime in early April that the Final Fantasy VII timed exclusivity period had ended. Now, it's unclear when Square Enix is allowed to start promoting it for other platforms. However, for this particular bit of news, this is telling us that the Intergrade, which is the PlayStation 5 next-gen upgrade, is exclusive for 6 months. So, unfortunately, PlayStation and Xbox fans are going to have to wait and see how this plays out, but hopefully the wait isn't too long, because I know that there are a lot of Final Fantasy fans out there that have been waiting for this to come to their platform of choice. Next up, Ubisoft has made a few announcements. Now, Ubisoft has said that they will brand all of their first-party titles now as Ubisoft Originals. And this actually also comes off the announcement that they were coming up with a spin-off for The Division called Heartland, and it's a free-to-play game. And I think this is a really interesting move from Ubisoft. Ubisoft is a lot bigger than you probably think it is, and I think it's about time that they actually started branding their own games. Ubisoft has so many big franchises, and they also have their foot in the esport realm with the likes of Rainbow Six Siege. Ubisoft hasn't had the greatest track record over the past few years for its biggest franchises like Assassin's Creed and The Division, but I think that this is a good move by them, but I'm really excited to see what this free-to-play spin-off of The Division will be like, because I know that with The Division 2, a lot of people were upset with the lack of endgame content, and if they're following the free-to-play format in the likes of Warframe or something else like that, I think this could be a big hit for them, and I think it could be a big hit for a lot of gamers around the world. Accessibility is key, and the more people that are able to play games, the better. Next up, let's go to Team Green, and the biggest bit of news here is that Microsoft is continuing to support and utilize the FPS boost within the Xbox Series consoles. They've provided a boost to 74 additional titles on top of the ones that were already there, bringing the total up to over 90 games with FPS boost. And you have to understand that these changes are being made without changes to the code. It's something that they're doing within the architecture of the Xboxes that is allowing them to do this, and this is honestly insane. Now, this is obviously something that PC gamers have had access to for, well, forever, but in the name of game preservation, going back and being able to play games at an increased performance breathes new life into these games. And for those that are going to play it for the first time, it enhances the experience even further. FPS boost is honestly one of the best things that has come out of console gaming in quite a while, and I'm very excited to see what else Microsoft and Xbox are able to do with it. Next up is another bit of news from Team Green that I really don't think should be said, but it has to be said because there are still a lot of people that don't understand this. And that is Xbox has confirmed that it has never turned a profit on the Xbox consoles. Now, there is something that everyone has to understand is that Microsoft and Xbox sell their consoles at a loss, at least for the first few years. Where Xbox and PlayStation make their money are from sales. They make their money from software. They make money from people buying things on their stores. Out of the big three, the only one that actually makes a profit off of the hardware sales is Nintendo. Both Sony and PlayStation sell their Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 respectively at a loss and rely on the software sales to turn a profit. Now, the reason I think that this shouldn't have to be said is because it kind of just makes sense. There's some really cool technology within these consoles, and before the PC people come at me and say, oh, this technology's been out for years, well, guess what? There are a lot of console-only gamers out there that are completely unknowledgeable to everything in the PC hardware market. All the hardware upgrades and all the technology is completely new to this demographic of people. And this kind of just further reinforces my point that I think it's silly when people argue about which console has sold more because they don't even make money off of these consoles. They make money from the games sold. And that's why you see Xbox pushing Game Pass so much, because that is something that is profitable for them. But we can talk about that another time. Moving on, speaking of hardware sales, Nintendo Switch has actually surpassed 84 million consoles sold, which is frankly astonishing. I'm not going to go too deep into this. The Nintendo Switch absolutely deserves it. Out of the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch, the Switch was by far my favorite of the three consoles. The ability to just take it anywhere on the go, the quality of games that Nintendo puts out for its system, it's really hard to pass up, and if you honestly have any interest in having a console-like gaming experience on the go, you need to have a Nintendo Switch, period, stop. Next up is a little bit of news from BioWare on the Mass Effect Legendary Edition that is coming out in just a few days, as of the time of the recording of this video. Mass Effect is a legendary space opera that had come out of the BioWare of old in the late 2000s. Honestly, if I asked around, I couldn't name too many people that haven't tried out this game, but I'm super excited that they're coming out with this. The game has different frame rate and graphics options. It can go all the way up to 4K and 120 FPS on the Xbox Ones and up to 4K 60 on the PlayStation 5. And also, BioWare had actually taken a look at the mods on PC for benchmarks on how this Legendary Edition should run on the consoles, and I actually think that that's a really cool thing. I do think it's interesting that developers have actually looked into mods on the internet from random people out there and benchmarked their game off of that because people clearly like these mods. So I'm super stoked for Mass Effect. If you've never tried it, it is a franchise that you absolutely have to give a go. Let's just forget that Mass Effect Andromeda existed, shall we? The less that we talk about that game, the better. Moving on from that is that a director from CD Projekt Red has had to leave the company following an investigation into workplace bullying. Now, there has been a lot of negative news coming out of the Polish developer since the release of Cyberpunk 2077. Now, you all have to understand that prior to the release of Cyberpunk is that CDPR could frankly do no wrong. They were the golden boy. They were doing everything right in the industry, at least in the eyes of the general public. There are obviously insiders and people that knew the crunch that was going on, and I'm sure some other shady practices. But this news just continues to pile on the negativity for them. Now, it's still kind of sad news to see, and I wish that something like this didn't have to happen, but, but it seems like he made the right decision. I'll leave the link to the article down below. You can kind of read what the guy had to say. He had worked on all three of the Witcher games, and he just states that people don't feel safe working with him. It seems like he made the right decision. I can get behind that. Let's wrap this up with a little bit of news about Yakuza. Now, Yakuza is a long-running franchise. It is a very story-based game and franchise and has been around for a while. And up until recently, it has been a button-masher brawler type of game in terms of its combat. But in the most recent release in Yakuza Like a Dragon, it has changed to a turn-based RPG, which I actually think was a pretty interesting idea. And for any of you who have played Like a Dragon, you know that it's a really good game. And now the developer has come out and said that it's going to remain a turn-based RPG. Now, I think that it was okay for them to do it one time, but for them to completely change the franchise into that, I'm not sure how well it's going to go down for longtime fans. In fact, another kind of slap to the face was that they said that if you want to go back to the brawler style of combat, go play Judgment, and then go play the sequel Lost Judgment. Now, I kind of think that that's a little bit of a slap in the face. Yes, Judgment is set in the same universe, but I just don't know how I feel about them saying, well, you want the old style of combat? Go back to a different game. Like, when I buy Yakuza, I know what to expect. Really ridiculous, over-the-top moves, very, very long cutscenes, but ultimately an enjoyable experience. Now, will I enjoy them regardless of whether or not they are turn-based or a real-time combat? Yes, absolutely. I'm interested to see how the longtime fan base is going to react to this, but what do you guys think about it? Anyway, that's going to do it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that this was helpful and informative. If you liked the video, remember to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more content like this and you want to support the channel, consider subscribing. Be sure to give me a follow over on Twitter, and we can talk directly about the latest and greatest gaming news that's coming out. I'll catch you guys next time.